Hi. The film begins with Bassem, who arrives at the hotel where his wife is, and he knocks on the door of Michelle's room. As soon as she opens the door, she greets him with, "Whoa." At the same time, Butler sees someone entering the hotel, and he has a bouquet of roses. He takes out a gun and finishes at the journalist who is meeting him, and the place suddenly turns into chaos and begins. The killers are falling, one after the other. At the same time, Hissam hears the sound of the fire, so he quickly descends and greets the person with all professionalism. He uses his experience in martial arts and drops his weapon. The man takes out a knife and tries to feed Sam with it, but he reacts to his blows with all professionalism, and he beats the criminal with all his might until he dies and tells Mitchell that he is afraid for her. In light of the situation that is happening, it is possible that the former president's militia could kill her, especially since she is a newspaper reporter and all her work is in the street. He offers her to go with him to the embassy, but she refuses because she loves her job and must cover all the events that happen in the country. So Bass blames Sam for her and prays for her. May God protect her, and he goes to Blair and goes to the embassy, and in order to understand what is happening, we must go back a little. The film begins in the country of Moldova, where there are large demonstrations carried out by supporters of former President Korlev, who are demanding his return to power again. Among the large crowd, Mike, the American journalist, is present, who is filming the demonstrations, and he sees a group of revolutionaries burning the world. The American, in the middle of the street, Mike goes to the Continental Hotel and starts talking to his fellow journalists, and they learn about the riot and chaos that is happening at that time. They inform his colleague that what is happening in the country began after the elections for the new president because the people chose Amrov and Korlev fell, and at that time, Korlev decided to plan the coup so that he could return to power again, and he knew that it was possible. He is planning to kill Amiro, the new president elected by the rebel militia. He said that it is the people who want to get rid of him, and he knows that the military commander, Sam, will arrive at the embassy today to take over the job of the military attaché, because the ambassador needs someone with the competence and experience of Sam for any possible unrest, and the one who came before him is Butler, so that they can deliver him. Sam actually arrives at the embassy and gets off his plane, and he is riding with Butler, but he asks him to drive him first to the Continental Hotel, with the aim of meeting his wife before he goes to the embassy. He knows that it will only take 1 hour, but Butler actually takes him to the hotel, which will be the same hotel where all the reporters are staying, and the American journalists. As he goes to his wife Michelle Wall's room, when it opens, she reacts to the presence of Sam, and Pace blames her warmly. At the same time, the butler sees someone inside the hotel. He looks suspiciously carrying a bouquet of roses. He takes out a gun and finds the journalist he is meeting, and the whole place begins to turn into chaos as a number of people fall. He hears Sam shooting, so he immediately goes down and starts confronting a person using his fighting experience, and is able to knock the weapon out of his hand, so he begins to stab him with his knife, but Sam is able to dodge his blows, and he hits the criminal so hard that he is able to kill him. After, Hissam tells Michelle that he is very afraid for her in light of the chaotic conditions in the country, because the former president's militia could kill her, especially since she is a newspaper reporter, and her entire job is in the street under fire. He offers her to go with him to the embassy, but she refuses because she loves her job and must cover all the events that happen in the country. So Sam is sold and goes to the embassy, and the one who receives the embassy guards with a military salute and introduces Butler to Sergeant Daniel, who welcomes him. Then meets Jennifer, the embassy's secretary, and what she knows is that Ambassador Norland always talks about him with pride, and they say that he is a special forces hero in the army. The two arrive at the office of the ambassador, who is very happy when he sees Sam. Sam apologizes to him for the delay, so he sells to the security commander, who, Fury, as a file containing members of the militia affiliated with the former president. Their leader, Narv, and his assistant, Tarkov, were the ones who ordered the attack on the hotel and the killing of the press correspondents. The ambassador knows that they are a communist group and that their goal is to fight the United States. This was the reason for planning a coup against the president, and this is since the United States prevents these democratic systems in publicly. Of course, my friend. At the same time, a group of visible officers heads to the presidential palace, and they are met by one of his men, who begin to give orders and find out the developments of events. As for Michelle, she heads to the place of the demonstration to cover the news. At the same time, intelligence officer Frank arrives at the ambassador's office, and who knows the ambassador about 3 explosions that occurred in the city, and that 500 of the corps of militia are heading towards the vital places and the presidential palace. Al Wissam tells us about the army's position on what is happening. Frank, they know that President Amiv ordered the army forces to besiege the armed militia camps, but he knows that the operation has been delayed for a long time, and that he hopes that the militia will reach the president and that he will be executed tonight. While there are huge demonstrations around the presidential palace, we see Michelle covering the events and talking about President Amiv's need for his army. Suddenly, in the midst of the chaos that is taking place, a sniper from the Kirillov group shoots a bullet from the window and hits one of the female demonstrators, who falls dead instantly, and this causes anger. Thousands of demonstrators who are trying to be cut off by the walls of the presidential palace begin to clash with the guards, while the presidential assistant says that he knows that one of the guards killed the demonstrator, but Amif is very upset because he did not issue an order to fire, and he begins to think of a way to escape from the palace before it is stormed. From the demonstrators, he picks up the phone and calls the American ambassador, Norland, and they learn that the militia was the one that opened fire on the demonstrators, and he asks him for help in the ambassador's office. He knows from Norland that Amiv asked for their help. Frank tries to make him understand that the process of rescuing the president and extracting him from the palace is almost impossible, but Sam knows the ambassador. He is able to get him out safely, and he asks him to hand him all the powers. Norland agrees and tells him that he is confident in him and his fighting abilities. He delivers an armored Arab vehicle to the presidential palace, and he takes his gun and goes down. Immediately, he enters through a door behind the palace. I see him walking away, and she is very afraid for him. Sam goes to the president's office, and the one who Sam welcomes him and asks him about his private driver. At the same time, the demonstration grows, and a armed group joins the demonstrators, which begins to open fire with machine guns, and very violent clashes take place with the palace guards. Between pushing a huge group to storm it, Jack calls Sam, and they learn that he must change his escape plan because it is possible. He confronts the demonstrators and decides at that time Sam helps him, that he resorts to an alternative plan. Sam's alternative plan depends on camouflaging himself with a car, the same cars the president's car and he is riding in it, and the president is actually with his face covered so that when he comes out, the militiamen are fooled into him and open fire on him. But when Tarkov opens the car's door, he discovers the deception. At the same time, Sam is driving the second car and asks the president to lower his head. He asks that he go as quickly as possible from the gate, and Turkovac is shot in the head, and his men begin to leave after the car in which the president is, but all this is in vain, so Tarkov tells Mitchell and the rest of the journalists present that they are walking from the places immediately, and he calls his men and asks them to go to the American embassy quickly as Sam approaches the embassy. But they are surprised by violence and she turns on her side. At that time, the embassy soldiers come down and try to deal with the militia members, and an exchange of fire takes place, so a group of them rushes to the car to prevent Sam from leaving, and President Sam is trying to. He breaks the window of the car with his leg and he is able to get out. He is Mirov and tells him to prepare to run as quickly as possible in the middle of fierce firefights between the militia and the embassy guards. The one who throws a smoke bomb to disperse the illusion is shot by the sniper on the roof, and indeed Sam and my mother are able to reach the door of the embassy and the two of them enter. Finally, with the president's relief, Sam welcomes him and tells him, "Welcome to the United States of America." At the same time, Tarkov whistles to his men to order them to retreat and withdraw. Then asks Sergeant Dunnell to say that he must call in the Marines because the militia will certainly not remain silent. It is reported that they are trying to cut off the embassy in any way possible. Sam enters the embassy and learns that there is a group of American civilians who have taken refuge in the embassy with the aim of being protected. Sam asks her to show him all the maps of the embassy so that he can determine from them the insurance plan. At the same time, Tarkov begins to organize the ranks of his men, and they are all gathered, armed, near the embassy building. Sam begins examining the weapons in the embassy, and he knows that they are impossible to ward off the expected attack. He goes to Beirut to the ambassador, but they are surprised when he violently breaks into the embassy building. So he quickly takes the fire extinguisher and goes to the president and asks him to go immediately to the laboratory, but they are quickly surprised and he calls for medical help immediately. Asks Norland to calm himself down. He tries to encourage him, but unfortunately the ambassador dies from his wounds. At the same time, his militiamen begin to spread around the place and on the rooftops, carrying rifles and heavy equipment. Sam calls the American Secretary of Defense to find out what happened to the ambassador and inform them that they are besieged in the embassy and that they need support, so they tell the minister that the Marines will arrive within 6 months, hours to carry out the rescue operation, and all communication channels are open between him and the military intelligence, the army, and the Pentagon. In fact, a signal is received by the Marine fleet at sea, and they begin to prepare to head to Moldova. At the same time, the Delta forces board planes to help the Marine forces. Frank knows that Sam knows that they are supposed to evacuate the embassy and escape immediately, but Sam completely refuses and tells him that they are waiting for support. Frank underestimates Sam's words, and they know that what he is doing is wrong and that he will kill everyone in the embassy. At the same time, Tarkov is talking to them on the radio. Sam looks at him and goes out to talk to someone responsible at the embassy. Sam informs him that the American ambassador has been killed, and he is in charge of the embassy, so they sold out. He wants Emiro to surrender himself because he is accused of killing civilians going to the palace. He said, this means their heart is against the people, or some of their men will be killed. But Sam refuses to hand him over, thinking that he is on American soil. Tarkov then goes to the embassy building, and 3 hostages get out of the car. They are a military commander and a newspaper reporter, and also Sam's wife, Michelle. The first time he sees her, he gets nervous and feels under siege and psychological pressure. Tarkov makes the 3 men sit on their knees and raises his gun at them. When the general tries to move one of his men, Tarkov stands next to the threatening bullets. Sam calls Tarkov on the radio and asks him to leave the hostages, but he asks they hand over his command first, and the 3 will be executed immediately. Sam tries to assure him that the hostages are innocent and that they are not at fault in the conflict between them, but he insists on his request. While Sam strongly refuses to implement it, he consults the sniper and the one who kills the general, and he speaks to him from Tarkov's second, holding Mitchell's hair. He stares at the embassy forces in defiance as he puts the gun on her head, and Tarkov tells Sam that if the president does not come immediately, he will kill all the hostages and the embassy will be stormed, which is all of them, and that they have only 15 minutes to hand over the president. So Sam meets with Frank and Baldo, and who knows that there are 2 soldiers who follow them on the ground. Hissam calls them on Las Vegas and tells the soldiers outside the embassy to determine their location. Frank informs them that there is a wheel that they must take and put explosives in, but before all that, they must kidnap 2 of Tarkov's men, take their clothes, and disguise themselves in it at the same time. Sam tells the Lamafix that if he wants to get out to them, he may do this, but then the corrupt Korolev will return to the position a second time and he will be the cause of the complete destruction of the state. He said that his concern is other than its interests at the time when armored vehicles and army vehicles are moving, and they take 4 hours to reach the embassy building, while the soldiers on the ground are being trained by the Tarkov militia and are heading to the store. Bicycles. And there they tell the shop owner the password, so the shop owner hands them a box of CF explosives, and one of the soldiers puts explosives in the wheel near the militia and those who were standing in front of the embassy, and he is detonating it using the remote control at the time. The people will be standing and ready, he and the soldiers, and as soon as the explosion happens, he throws the soldiers. The embassy throws smoke bombs at the militia, and they start shooting him one after the other from the windows, and they start hunting the snipers one after the other. At the same time, there is a car coming out of the embassy in the middle of the smoke, which obscures the view of the militia members, and he is able to reach a number of soldiers to reach the ring and actually save them. But fire strikes and bloody clashes occur. A number of soldiers die, but they are able to enter the embassy with rain, and one of the soldiers is injured outside the embassy. So Sam flies out. He wears a gas mask and goes out to get it, and he gets rid of anyone who stands in his way. But suddenly Tarkov attacks him and a fierce fight occurs between them. So Sam uses his skills in martial arts. He closes his eyes on both of them. Then he takes the injured soldier and returns to the embassy immediately and locks the door on them. Sam enters the embassy to check on Michelle. At this time, Frank is talking to Sam and is very annoyed by his recklessness and begins to question Michelle and her colleague about the types of weapons that were present with the militia members at the time the militia entered. It burns down the embassy's electrical wire, which causes a malfunction in the cameras and the communication tower. Thus, they will not be able to communicate with the support that is coming to them, but they are able to communicate with General Anderson via radio waves. Sam informs him that the communication tower has been destroyed, and he informs him of the alternative plan that he made, so Anderson comes out of it and leaves. Frank is the one who speaks, so Frank tells him about their situation now and that they are greatly surrounded, and that the army and support will be late for them. He says that he prefers an immediate evacuation, so Pia told Captain Baldwin at the time that Anderson was assigned to be the mission commander in place of Sam. Sam is very upset that his role is marginalized at the time when Michelle intervenes. She talks to him and tries to convince him that the decision to evacuate Farah will prevent a massacre and that Baldwin certainly has good experience in dealing with Sam. He tells her that Baldwin is a good person, but he has not fought in war battles before, and that he lacks Sami's combat experience. At the time when Frank is selling the tunnels under the embassy, and whoever laughs, it has been done for a long time. It is designed to protect against explosions and nuclear bombs, and they agree that at night the embassy will be evacuated through the underground tunnel. Soldiers will then begin to evacuate, and they will take civilians out at first, and a bus will be waiting for them outside the tunnel at the same time. Frank asks him to come with them if he wants, but Sam tells Frank that he will remain in the embassy because he will be the one who will communicate with Tarkov and distract him from the evacuation process. Frank tells him to do what makes him comfortable. The process of evacuating the embassy has already begun, and Frank meets Baldwin and tells him to act correctly and that his decision is the best. He exits the tunnel to be stingy at the embassy, and the bus is waiting for them, bringing civilians into it, and he is on guard under the cover of the soldiers. At the same time, Tong is alone in the embassy building, and he is surprised at how Tarkov has not attacked the embassy yet, and he is laughing at the bus as a result of his men. Tarkov gets the driver off the bus and runs, and whoever is waiting for them. Sam runs into the tunnel and tries to go to the bus, but the bus explodes and everyone inside it dies. The civilians have already managed to escape from the explosion, including the president and Frank, and those who turn around and quickly go to the embassy building. At the same time as the militiamen reach the tunnel door, there is one of the soldiers trying to confront them, but they pierce his body with bullets and enter the tunnel. Frank returns to the embassy. They ask Sam about Michelle, so he tells him that she is probably in the tunnel. They tell Sam that he will go and save everyone in the tunnel, and that he will come back the second time, and he grabs Frank by the neck and talks to him in a challenging manner, and he knows that he is not in charge from now on, after he caused the deaths of innocent people, and Sami begins to sneak in to the tunnel carefully. He sees Michelle and asks her to pretend that she is dead, and he also pretends to be dead so that when the militia members enter, they will not arrest them. He begins to pull her into the side corridor and pulls to fire shots from his gun. He quickly returns to hide, and because of his smart movement, the militia members open fire on each other and look into each other's mouths as he removes them. He walks on his shoulder and returns to the embassy. He makes Gundy close the door of the tunnel and throws a bomb into it. At this moment, there will be an hour left until air support from the Delta forces and ground support from the army arrive. The meeting takes place between Frank and Sam and the president, and he calls for help to escape from the tunnel and is certain that there is a spy or device. She becomes suspicious and they detect a device on the clothes of everyone present, including President Emiro himself, but the surprise is that the tracking device is on the clothes of Michelle, who is very sad because she caused the death of innocent people, but Sam tries to guide her while telling her that all of this was not her fault and that Baldwin took over the command. To Sam, as he confesses to him that he was right from the beginning. Tarkov's house Basim is on the radio and he renews his offer to him a second time that they will hand over the president to him in exchange for everyone in the embassy leaving safely, but Sam speaks to him in a challenge and he informs him that the Marines and Delta forces are on their way to the embassy, so he mocks his words. Tarkov tells him that by the time they arrive, everything will be over. Sam reassures all the civilians in the basement as he delivers recruits. They inform Sam that they have collected the largest amount of nails and metals exactly as he asked them. At the same time, Tarkov is passing his men to the attack, and he notices on the roof their preparation for the attack. The soldiers are getting ready and holding a machine gun to be ready for the time of attack, so he builds a car full of explosives towards the embassy's pictures, and he jumps out of it together before it collides with the pictures, which causes a large explosion. The soldiers begin to open fire on them, and strong clashes take place. In an exchange of fire takes place, but the gang's militia enters the embassy through the hole caused by the explosion, but as soon as they enter, a soldier pulls a wire connected to a bomb with nails in it, which explodes in them and is killed in a horrific manner. A second group succeeds in entering the embassy, and a very strong exchange of fire takes place. At the same time, Tarkov knows that the army's support will arrive. Pace loved his men from the embassy arrives quickly, and Sam asks for magnifying glasses and sees the army, and they are on the way, amidst the joy of the soldiers on the roof of the embassy. At this time, the president is preparing to leave, and he thanks all the embassy men for their efforts. Frank leaves the embassy and goes to the army commander, General Bogov, and he thanks him for his arrival. The president is freed, but a soldier from the embassy he feels treacherous, and Sami is aware that the president returns to the embassy before he leaves. Laughs at the army belonging to Tarkov, and that they are not the original support forces, and they are trying to kill the president, but they cannot, and they kill Frank. And he and his men enter Tarkov into the embassy quickly. At the time when the support army arrives and speaks to Sam, informing them that they have club. As the situation continues, Delta forces planes begin to spread in the sky. Tarkov's armored vehicles are blown up, and all of his men on the ground are eliminated. At the same time, Sam tries to resist while eliminating all the men who entered the embassy, but his ammunition runs out, so Tarkov withdraws at a time when Tarkov is getting closer and they are trying to reach Michelle, but she takes a gun from a soldier on the ground and kills two of them, and Tarkov passes in front of her. She is very afraid and hesitates to kill him, so I walk in front of her. At the same time, they are surprised. He fades Baldwin with a dagger of poison. He fights with him in a very fierce manner. Tarkov grabs a fire extinguisher and tries to hit him with it, and he looks at him with strong blows from his hands. Tarkov is able to hold himself together, and the time begins for the thunderbolts to descend from the planes, and they are able to save those in the embassy and get the people out safely, and they bring out President Amif, who thanks Sam for his courage and heroism. And the commander of the Marines comes to thank Sam, who is very proud of what he did and salutes everything. The soldiers who helped him rescue the president and the embassy are one. God is one, my friend. Pray for the prophet. Like the video and subscribe to the channel to see the upcoming summaries.